Bad photography could be costing you thousands in lost bookings. In this episode of Host Planet Bitesize, powered by Hostfully, I'm joined by professional property photographer Michael Fox. He'll be sharing the key principles every short-term rental host needs to understand, from lighting and angles to storytelling and first impression psychology. We'll also explain how the right images can dramatically increase clicks, conversions, and nightly rates. If you want your listing to stand out in a crowded market, this episode is essential. Let's get straight into it. Michael, welcome to Host Planet Bitesize. What's your top photography tip to short-term rental hosts?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So first of all, it's just worth mentioning how important photos are for your short-term rental. Without any photos, you're not going to get any bookings, are you? It'd be a complete lottery. So it's definitely one of the most crucial things that you want to get right. So it's not like buying a house where you can view it before you commit to buying, and you can't do that with a short-term rental. So photos are definitely one of the key factors in getting bookings for your property. So you want to make sure that they're the best that they can be, to give potential guests the confidence that your property is the right place for their stay. So tip number one is make sure your property is clean, tidy, and just free of any clutter. Which it sounds really obvious, but just having that attention to detail just really goes a long way. So things to think about, just like loose cables that might be lying around, just make sure they're tucked away and out of sight, because they can make a room look quite messy. And I would definitely say a less is more approach is quite good. So obviously you want to include your decorative items, things that add a little pop of colour, make it feel more homely. Fruit bowl, like flowers, or any ornaments, they're fine, but try and keep it minimal. But for your kitchen, for example, you want to keep minimal appliances. So your kettle, your toaster, your nice coffee machines, they're good, they're fine. But anything else, anything bulky, like air fryers or bread makers, you want to keep those hidden away, really. And just keep an eye out for things like washing up liquid, kitchen roll, just things like that. Just make sure it's all hidden away.
I think that's really good advice, yes, especially avoiding the clutter, because it is easy, like in the kitchen, you might leave bread out or cereal boxes or anything like that. And then that attention to detail, removing the wires and stuff like that, it's really important. And I think you're exactly right, that minimalist approach. I'm actually in the process of selling the house that I live in at the moment, and I haven't wanted to have the photos taken until we've kind of cleared so much of his kids' toys, basically. Get all the kids' toys out of the way. So it just looks much more appealing. I think, taking that minimalist approach is really important. So, okay then, Michael. So that's tip number one. What's tip number two?
So tip number two is your composition, your angles, and your framing. So the height and the angle of your photo are things to get right. So one key tip is to make sure that your photos are completely level. So what a lot of people do is they stand tall in the corner of a room. They take a photo from high up and look down on a space. But what that can often do is make things look a little bit distorted and make your room feel a little bit smaller. So particularly for the wide shots of your room, you want to make sure you want to get lower down. Basically, you want to be at either chest or hip height, depending on how tall you are. And then what you want to do is look at the edges of your frame. So look at your verticals, your walls, your doors, and make sure those vertical lines are parallel with the edges of your camera frame. This is it's quite a simple thing, but it just helps your photos feel more professional. And if you can, I'd use a tripod or just something that you can prop your camera up on, because not only will that help make your photos level, but it'll help them make them nice and sharp and reduce motion blur from handheld photography, things like that.
Definitely, yeah, it'll give you that level of consistency. All right, then, quick one before we get to tip 3. This episode is powered by Hostfully, the property management platform trusted by professional hosts and managers around the world. From powerful automation to best-in-class digital guidebooks, Hostfully helps you deliver a better guest experience while running a more efficient business. If you're watching on YouTube, simply scan the QR code on screen or hit the link in the show notes to book a demo with Frank Bosey, who's a big friend of our show and one of the nicest guys in the STR space. And don't forget, Host Planet listeners get 2 exclusive offers: $500 off onboarding for the property management software and 30% off digital guidebooks for life. All right, back to it. Michael, what's tip number 3?
Okay, tip number 3 is lighting. So lighting is super important, probably the most important actually. It should have been tip number 1 really, but I thought I'd put these tips in a bit more of a logical order. So your images just want to be light and bright as possible. Use as much natural light as you can. Open your blinds, your curtains to the fullest, open doors if need be. Just get as much natural light flooding through your property as possible. Which is not always easy. I tend to use a little bit of flash when I'm shooting properties, which you might think, it's a bit garish, a bit unflattering, which it is if you're not using it in the right way. So you've got to let the natural light do most of the work, and then I'll use a separate flash, just to bounce off the ceiling, get a bit of soft light, just to lift the room a little bit. You don't always need flash though. You could use a lamp maybe, just to help brighten a dark corner perhaps. But I would try and avoid using your main lights where possible, just because, or too much artificial lights, because you can end up with some strange colour casts. Because without getting too technical, your natural light and tungsten light are kind of on the opposite ends of the colour spectrum. So they tend to clash a little bit. So yeah, definitely use as much natural light as possible, because that'll really help your images feel cleaner and just more professional.
And how important is it to get the time of day right? If you're in the winter months in the UK specifically, you don't want to be taking your photos at 5-6 o'clock at night. Do you always think, if you're taking shots of a property, I want to get there mid-morning, something like that?
Yeah, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, something like you want the light to be quite soft, and just pay attention to what different rooms are doing at different times of day, because you might have a room that's maybe a bit darker in the morning, but in the afternoon it might be a little bit lighter and brighter. So take your photos then. So yeah, just keep an eye on what the light is doing in your property like throughout the day. But I would say don't take your photos at night. I have seen that before, and it doesn't sell the space very well. And unless you're selling some sort of stargazing opportunity in your garden, or you try to sell you've got a fire and you're selling that cozy night in kind of vibe. But those kind of shots lend themselves a bit better for like a lifestyle type of shot, which actually brings me on to tip number 4. So tip number 4 is sell those moments. Sell the why. So think about your target audience. Why are people booking your property? Think about those little moments that people are going to be thinking about, thinking that they're going to be doing, and when they stay at your property. So it can be really simple. It can be something simple like teapot and teacups, which can work in a living space just as well as a bedroom. I personally like a cup of tea in bed on a morning when I'm staying away somewhere. Start the day slow and relaxed. Or maybe you want to go down the route of a bottle of wine or champagne glasses, or next to a fire, roaring fire, if you're going for that kind of cozy vibe. Or even like a breakfast setup, if you've got a nice kind of like open plan kitchen dining space, maybe a pot of coffee or fresh fruit or fresh pastries. Or if you include things like a welcome pack, show those kind of things, any local produce that you offer. Just little things just to help people imagine what they can do when they're going to stay at your property, and help them put themselves in your space, basically. And you can get a lot more creative with these shots as well. You don't need to sort of constrain yourselves with the strict framing that I talked about earlier. Like these lifestyle shots, you've got a lot more freedom. So yeah.
It's something we talk about quite a lot on the podcast, actually. It's selling the experience rather than just showing the rooms, because end of the day, a room is a room. But if you're actually selling the experience, that's what's going to excite potential bookers. I mean, for example, if somebody has a property which is set up maybe for hen parties, something like that, how would you approach kind of selling that experience? What props would you be looking to use?
I think similar thing. You could have the champagne glasses. Think about things that you're going to be celebrating. Maybe if you've got some games, I don't know, things like that. Just fun things just to put in place, just to get people, looking forward to staying there and just having a great time. Basically, that's what you're trying to sell, isn't it?
Yeah, showcase all those different amenities. Okay, then, Michael. So, tip number 5.
Tip number 5 is, just do a little bit of editing if you can. You can get some free editing software these days for your computer or your phone. You don't need to do loads. Just increase the brightness a little bit, lift the shadows a little bit, boost the color vibrance just a touch, make those colors pop. But as I say, just don't go overboard, because you can over edit images and they can start to look a bit unrealistic and a little bit nasty. You can tell when an image has been over edited. Just do a little bit. Minimal is best.
Yeah, you want it to be a fair representation of your place as well. You don't want people to turn up and think, well, okay, the photos were really nice, but this looks absolutely nothing like the photos. You want to be honest too. I know, Michael, you have a 6th bonus tip too. So tell us about this.
Yeah, I have a final bonus tip, and that is to hire a professional. I'm not just saying this because I am a professional photographer. I have spent a bit of time browsing sites like Airbnb and Booking.com, and I can tell when someone has had professional photos captured and when they haven't. And I'm definitely more likely to click on a listing that's had professional photos done. And what it usually tells me as well is that the person who owns that property is willing to go that extra mile, and cares a lot about the guest experience. Because you're building trust as well with these photos, and with your potential guests. So hire a professional, a photographer. They can help with all the tips that I've just run through, and they can take the pain away of doing it yourself, basically. So for the sake of a few hours, a few £100, if it gets you a few extra bookings, then it's paid for itself, hasn't it?
We've said this over and over again on the podcast and in our ebooks. The number one thing to get right in this game is photography, and to hire a professional. You mentioned there, Michael, kind of looking through Airbnb and Booking.com, and you can instantly tell when somebody's taken photos themselves and they've maybe done it on their phone, and they've done it quickly just because they want to get the listing uploaded. What are the most common mistakes that you see on those type of listings?
I think a few things, like I said, sort of the looking down on a space can just make things look. It can make a room look small and distorted. Without any editing, it can look a little bit dark. So just a little bit of editing, just to brighten images up a little bit. I think getting the order right as well. So really hone in on the things that are unique about your property. If you've got a nice big garden that's great in summer, sell that. If you've got a great family socializing space, really hone in that. You don't need 5 shots of a bathroom, unless you've got a really fantastic bathroom. Just really think about what's unique and what's the best thing about your property, and just really sell that.
Yeah, show off all those amenities that you have, the things that are really going to improve the guest experience. I remember actually I was speaking to a host, and she was struggling to get bookings, and I said, send me a listing, I'll have a look at it. And I saw the photos, and they were dark. The angles weren't great, but the one thing that came through to me was that there was just a total lack of consistency in any of the photos. All the bedding looked totally different. The cushions, all the colours were all over the shop. There was lots of clutter everywhere. It just seemed there wasn't much thought that had gone into those photos. So I think when the advantage of like working with a professional is you do get that consistency along everything, and they will try and kind of like stage your property as well. I mean, how important do you think it is to have that consistency and a level of staging?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, consistency. I mean, it feels like the images were sort of captured all at the same time. You know that they're from the same property at the same time. It's again, it's just building that trust, isn't it? For your potential guests. Yeah, and just having that natural light flowing through the property. Including those decorative elements as well. Not too many, but enough for it to just feel unique, feel homely. Just nice and clean, fresh and inviting. That's really what you want to show in your photos.
And remember, of course, that Airbnb, Booking.com, all the OTAs where you post these photos, they've got pretty strict algorithms, and they're judging all these photos. They're looking at how bright they are, the resolution, they're looking at all the amenities. They're basically judging them to see if people are going to find them appealing and want to book your property. So if your photos are no good, you're going to find yourself on page 10, page 15 of people's searches, and you're probably not going to get that many bookings. Okay then, Michael, just tell us a bit more about your business. Where can people find you if they need a professional photographer to take snaps of their rental?
Yep, so I'm a commercial photographer based in Yorkshire in the north of England. You can find my website. It's mfoxphoto.com. You just click the property section, you'll find my portfolio there. Or if you want to send me an email, it's michael@mfoxphoto.com.
Fantastic. And we'll put all those details in the show notes. Michael specializes in property photography. So if you need someone for your Airbnb, your short-term rental, he is your man. Michael, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Host Planet Bitesize.
Thank you, James. It's been my pleasure.
5 brilliant tips there from Michael Fox. Now, if you're reviewing your listing photos in 2026, drop a comment and tell us, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to photography? Is it lighting, staging, knowing what to shoot, or what not to? Chances are you're not the only one struggling with it. All right, that's it for this episode of Host Planet Bitesize. If you found this useful, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with another host who needs to see it. We've got new episodes dropping every single week, and all of them are packed with short-term rental hosting insights to help you. This is Host Planet Bitesize, powered by Hostfully. Until next time, happy hosting.